Chapter 5. Never Be the Same Again. We spot the Samaritan's tent lit by a couple of paraffin-driven Tilly lamps. Flying about the tent are 4 huge balloons, and at the gap in front of the flaps are 3 trestle tables. A man with a ginger beard and a woman in a caftan are resting their bare feet on the table and rocking to and fro on fold-up chairs. A woman in a knitted two-piece wearing a string of pearls comes out of the tent and asks us if she can help us. We were wondering if you know where we could get our heads down for the night. We swing our rolled up sleeping bags off our shoulders. Have you checked out the crash marquees? We didn't know there were any crash marquees. What are there? The lady with the string of pearls tells us that some big marquees are being set up for people who want to stay the night, because the festival organisers have already decided that there would be no official campsite. The best thing you can do is find one of the crash marquees and bed down for the night. There won't be any more trains till tomorrow because there's been a derailment. I've got a bit of lentil soup, if you want some. She indicates a blackened casserole pan sitting on a sort of retort stand near the fire. The soup has dried up a bit, but it tastes good, even out of a cardboard cup with wings on. I share out a crunchy bar. The man with the ginger beard and the caftan woman move for the first time to take a piece. Caftan woman says, "Like, cool, chocolate." Then she puts her feet back on the trestle table. We walk back to the area that the lady with the pearls has pointed to, past a campfire with a serious-looking gang of hippies. They're nodding their heads in time to a freshly minted bootleg tape of Eric Clapton singing Cocaine. We find the crash marquee. It's big enough to sleep 100 people in sleeping bags, but there are just 2 in it. They turn out to be sisters. One is 18, the other one is 15. They travelled on a scooter from Ashby de la Zouch. When they went to where they thought they'd left the scooter, it wasn't there. "I think we'll look somewhere else in the morning. We might find it somewhere else if we try hard enough," says the older sister. "Like Carlos Castaneda, like," says Dave, my companion on this adventure. "What?" "Well, like Carlos Castaneda says, like, if you look hard enough, you can find a card underneath a stone, like." "Right on, really?" "We left it near a tree," says little sister. "What kind of a tree?" "Well, like, just a tree, man, with leaves on." In the pocket of my ex-army jacket I have a can of Worthington E. I crack it open. I take a sip and offer it round. The sisters take a sip, Dave takes a sip, and it comes back to me. Dave has a few crumbs of Lebanese gold left. He rolls a joint. That gets passed round. I can see my scooter if I close my eyes. It's crying. "Shit, man. We need to, go and find it." Little sister lays down. She pulls big sister's coat across her. "I'm so tired." Big sister organises the coat so that it covers her as well and cuddles up beside her. Dave and me finish the can and drop the roach into it. It sisses. Silence. 5 minutes later, little sister says in a very tired voice, "You don't think somebody could have pinched it, do you?" Dave and me lay down. The zip on my sleeping bag is broken. I wrap it loosely round me. Whichever way I turn, my back ends up on the damp grass. Dave continually scratches at his beard and mop of tangled hair. No matter how hard I try, I can't get to sleep. I listen to a gang of Hare Krishnas chanting in the crash marquee next door. Somewhere a dog barks. Somewhere else a woman is singing Blowing in the Wind. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, July the 16th, 1978. A few hours before, Bob Dylan has taken his last bow after an encore of The Times They Are A-Changin'. We are somewhere on the border between Surrey and Hampshire, on a disused aerodrome called Blackbushe. 250,000 of us have been brought here over the last couple of days by trains to a station called Fleet from one called Waterloo. Trains and the odd scooter. Over 100 years before we came, the trains of the South Western Railway Company brought thousands of people to a station just a couple of miles down the line from here for a very different kind of festival. This crowd were dressed in the clothes of the fancy set, for they'd come to witness what was probably the most brutal fight ever fought between two men. On a chill April morning in 1860, Tom Sayers, Britain's best bare fist fighter, fought America's John C. Heenan for £200 and the title World Champion. In the hours of mayhem and violence that followed, Sayers lost the use of his right arm, while Heenan lost an eye. Spectators fought the police, and when someone slashed at the rope with a knife, Sayers was saved from being choked on it. I saw no violence in that crowd of 250,000 today. Someone told me later that they'd seen some cans thrown near the front of the stage, but they were empty cans. This journey started back in May at a place called Thwaite Gate on the edge of Leeds. The Leeds busmen had been on strike for a while, and their comrades in other bus companies, in a show of solidarity, had decided to only run services to the city boundary. We took the last bus of the day to Thwaite Gate, full of beer from the Blackmore Head in Pontefract. Bob Dylan was to play his first British date since 1966, 6 nights at Earl's Court. Barker's, the music shop on the Edrow in Leeds, had been chosen as one of the ticket agents. We trudged the 3 miles from Thwaite Gate into Leeds city centre and arrived just after 1 in the morning. The queue was already round the block, and the shop wasn't opening until 9. Within 2 hours of the shop opening, all the tickets were sold out. Shop assistants came down the line to tell everybody they had to go home. Nobody wanted to move. A woman in an Afghan coat called Acid Annie laid down in the hedgerow, kicked off her slippers and screamed, "But you can't do this, man! I saw him in Manchester at the Free Trade Hall. You can't do this to me!" A policeman told her to put her slippers back on and go back home. She told him she wanted to die, right now. I know Acid Annie. She worked in a chemist shop in Wakefield. A few weeks later, I saw her laid flat out and naked at Blackbushe Aerodrome. She had dyed her pubic hair and the hair beneath her armpits with cochineal and painted a sunflower on her belly. Some red-haired children were dancing around her singing "Half a pound of twopenny rice" and blowing bubbles from a bubble tube. Such was the demand for tickets at Earl's Court that hundreds and thousands of Dylan fans were left disappointed. A rock concert entrepreneur best known for his parties at Crystal Palace very quickly got his act together and created The Picnic at Blackbushe. In the meantime, Dylan did his 6 nights at Earl's Court and went off to the Zeppelin field at Nuremberg, to Rotterdam and Paris, and then came back to this old airfield near to where the first world title fight had been fought. Back to Barker's for us, and this time we got tickets. On the Friday evening before the festival, 4 of us tried to hitch from the place on the A1 where it intersects with the M62. Nobody wants to pick us up. We shouldn't be surprised. We look like medieval minstrels mixed with something out of a spaghetti western. I'm wearing cowboy boots, jeans with more patches than original jean, a filthy old army jacket and a leather cowboy hat. Roots is a popular television programme at the time, and for some reason my mates are calling me African George. Then there's Fuff in a biker's jacket and bowler hat, Dave in his tie-dyed gear and lumberjack coat, Alf from the chemical factory with hair down to his arse, and Max, who looks like King Charles with his golden hair in curls. That's if King Charles ever wore Levi's. We're cold, and the beard is wearing off. We jump in a taxi to Doncaster Station and take the late train down to London. On the way across London, we nick a pint of milk apiece from a passing float and join with all the other medieval minstrels, spaghetti westerners, pressed flower children, long hairs, beardos, weirdos, and a man wearing a German Second World War helmet to find the train for this place called Fleet. There's a reggae band called Merger playing when we enter the site. It's taken ages to get in because someone thinks we've got forged tickets. A bloke in a cheesecloth frock is telling the security man that he will be sure to faint and probably die of a broken heart if he can't pass through the gate. A rock band called Lake are next, then Graham Parker and the Rumour. Joan Armatrading sings Love and Affection, and about 50 of us sit cross-legged holding hands and hum the bass part. Years later, when I found out that Joan Armatrading is a staunch Tory party supporter, I tried to obliterate this lovely memory, but it won't go away. I want to melt my Joan Armatrading LPs into plant pots, but I can't. While we're holding hands, some little parachutes float down from the sky. Attached to them are badges that say Street Legal on them. During Eric Clapton's set, I close my eyes. Too much canned Worthington E, too much Leb Gold. I hear the old Bessie Smith song, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. I fall asleep. I hear knocking on heaven's door. I think I've slept too long and I'm missing Dylan. Then I hear Key to the Highway and realise Clapton's still on. I fall asleep. Layla, you've got me on my knees. Brings me to my feet. When Dylan finally comes on, he looks an inch or two tall from where we are. He's lit well enough for us to see his top hat. I find out later that he's borrowed it that morning from the commissionaire on his hotel's revolving door. He sings, Baby please stop crying, is your love in vain? True love tends to forget. All songs from the new album. It's only been out for a month or so. Already people know the songs off by heart. Then more familiar songs. Girl from the North Country, Like a Rolling Stone, Simple Twist of Fate, Just Like a Woman, and a slow, almost blues version of I Want You. The reference books will tell you that the set consisted of 35 songs, the longest Dylan concert ever. Then it's over. Trains derail, the Samaritans give out soup, two girls from Ashby de la Zouch search in vain for a scooter called Gandalf, Dave and me lose Max, Alf and Fuff, Acid Annie shivers and can't find her clothes. In the crash tent, I can't sleep. Dave is still scratching his beard. Did you ever, read anything by, Richard Brautigan? No. He's like this writer from San Francisco. He wrote some poems called The Pill versus the Spring Hill Mining Disaster. Dave recites by heart some of the poems. Sounds good. Good? Good? This is like the best writer you ever heard, man. Right. There's a book called The Abortion. There's a library in it where people can bring books that they've written themselves. Growing Flowers by Candlelight in Hotel Rooms is one. Love, Always Beautiful is another. It's been rejected by publishers over 400 times. Bert Stevens told me about a book called Catching Voles in the Outer Hebrides by Moonlight. Fuck Bert, man. In the weeks after Dylan, I collect the Picador editions of all the Brautigan books. When day breaks, we roll our sleeping bags up quietly. We're worried that the girls might ask us to help them look for their scooter. As we crawl out of the marquee, older sister says in the sleepiest voice you ever did hear, We did something really good here, you know. We say, yeah. Dave pulls two dog-eared paperbacks out of his knapsack. The books are by Michael Moorcock. One is called The Final Solution, the other, the latest in the Jerry Cornelius series, Condition of Muzak. He gives the sisters one each. In London we find the shop that only tired people coming back from pop festivals can find. It sells smoking paraphernalia, patchouli oil and mats for people who struggle to roll big joints. I buy a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam and read it to Dave, who sleeps all the way back up on the train. Awake! For morning in the bowl of night hath cast the stone that puts the stars to flight. In my pocket is a badge I also bought that says Legalise Cannabis. Dave won't let me wear it on my jacket because he says we'll attract too much attention to ourselves. We're dishevelled beyond belief. We smell like goats, and every other passenger on the train is staring at us. And Dave thinks if I wear a badge we'll attract attention to ourselves. Nearly 20 years later, I go to see Dylan again at Stratford-upon-Avon, this time with my mate Kevin Reynolds, and a brand new tent. We make the mistake of deciding to put up the tent after the gig. We see Dylan, Van Morrison, and a superb show in a marquee put on by the acid jazz band Galliano. We get so stoned that we can't talk. We spend 2 hours trying to put up the tent, and then finally realise we've been trying to put up a ground sheet. We cut our losses and sleep on the ground. Before we do, Kevin takes the reflective red hazard warning triangle out of the boot of his car and erects it next to our heads. You never know, he says. Some fucker might come by on a motorbike and run us over. If you look it up on the internet, you'll find the Festival Welfare Report on Blackbushe, written by a woman called Penny Mellor, who was a field worker at the time. The report, compiled in the weeks after, talks about the bench seats in the lavatories being too high and getting easily messy. It mentions cold and hungry people wandering around in the middle of the night and about cancelled buses and trains. It says that it became impossible to walk without treading on litter, and there were very few problems with drugs. I got home to my gran and granddad's house. In the weeks and years after, my granny compiled her own report. It consisted of just one sentence. Aryan went to see Bob Dylan and he's never been the same lad since he came home.